get your brackets out and what's left of them. It is Rob
I'm
Browne
afraid
here.
to look at my brackets. I think I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Although I made some good picks. I got some good picks.
I mean, I've got all 4 of my schools are still alive, so I got a 25% chance to be right. So we'll see what happens. Rob Browne, Brenden Martin here with you on this Tuesday morning. Great show in store. Coach Ellis Johnson, veteran SEC defensive coordinator and head coach. And he has got some stories and memories and insight. Jake Wimberly from Jackson, Mississippi, ESPN 105.9 will be on with us talking all things Mississippi. Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, will check in. And Rodney Orr,
Rodney Orr, by the way, Rodney and I talk all the time. He's amazing. He is my guy, man. He's like a mentor to me now. We talk all the time. He's a great guy. What a great guy. He is
one of the good guys, as
truly.
He calls him, an OG, an original gangster, an original guy. He's been doing this. In 2026 will be 30 years. We'll celebrate it on this show. Hey, take a picture with your phone of the QR code. We're here, Sidelines. Follow us on X at Rob Browne _ YouTube, Facebook.
Hey, if you're a YouTube person, just go ahead. All you have to do is search for SEC Sideline Sports Network. You're going to see us come up. Go to the podcast page there. You'll check out all of the different podcasts we're going on. We're recording Kevin Skarbinski, Scarbo Knows today, as well as we'll be recording and live streaming Auburn Undercover live with Ronnie Sanders. We're going to talk all things Auburn basketball. And, of course, the Buddy Martin Show with me, you, and Lauren Meadows tonight, Tuesday night. Are you going to be there tonight? I know you're on the road.
Yeah. Well, we'll be tonight at 8:00. I'll be in Birmingham, so I'll be doing it from Birmingham.
All right.
Yeah. So we'll be meeting, and I'm looking forward to it. And tomorrow we'll be in Atlanta. So on the road again. I love it. Willie Nelson's famous song. I love being on the road.
On the road again.
And going to State Farm Arena to watch that South Regional. Ole Miss, man, Michigan and Michigan State, and the Gators going to San Francisco.
Oh, so weird.
Coach, you know what's crazy is in the middle of all this, we're having to wrestle with them angels, as Coach Dye would say, about talking some college football. In the middle of the basketball is getting so big in the SEC, and I think it's a good thing, because if you're a football coach and you're trying to kind of keep out of the spotlight, which is impossible really in the South, but spring practice is underway at a lot of schools. We're starting to hear, Matt Rule at Nebraska. I don't need a spring game. Lincoln Riley, Southern Cal, Steve Sarkisian at Texas. We don't need them. There are different opinions. As a longtime coach, and I always like to say, for a 19-year-old, it's one thing to think the way he does, but for someone who's 50, I've been 19, I've been 50. You've only been 19. What do you think about spring practice and all that is going on in the SEC? 16 schools, all putting money in. Everybody's got facilities. How are you going to separate yourself from the pack if you're not out working them and out thinking them?
Well, I think spring practice is important, and I think that every practice is important. And I think any coach would tell you, unless they're beat up, worn out, and tired, they'll take every single practice you give them anytime during the year. You can't get enough. Some coaches abused it early on, and, in some ways we didn't know we were abusing it, but that's why all the rules came in, trainers and other students and everything on these committees pushing stuff like that. But as far as the spring game specifically, I don't know that they're that important. Now, some schools have done a great job of promoting it and getting the fan base to come and making it a, overgrown pep rally, and that's good. Yeah. If it's not that to you, then the thing we were always chewing our fingernails at last scrimmage was nobody getting hurt. And so, frankly, there are some things about it that coaches don't like, the spring game specifically. But I think if they start cutting spring practice, I don't think coaches would want that at all.
Yeah. Jake Wimberly just texted he had an emergency come up. I think he has young kids.
He does.
I remember that. And that dude is as reliable as it gets. But, Coach, we got a lot to cover. And when you talk about the spring game, I'm with you on the spring game. It's usually the scrimmage, the Friday or Saturday, the week before, when the coaches pretty much know what they've got. Looking around, I want to start with South Carolina. We know about the success, and you were a big part of it, that Steve Spurrier had 2011, 12, and 13, 3 straight 11-win seasons. Not many schools can say they've done that. That's very, very difficult to do. Lenore Sellers is back. When he signed that NIL deal, he was a different player in the bowl game. Hopefully he's kind of adjusted, because, when you get an ACH deposit in your bank account overnight, like he probably did, it'll mess with your head. But Shane Beamer, what's his ceiling?
I don't know. South Carolina, that 3 11-win seasons in a row has never been done there before. And there are a lot of things that Steve did that have never been done before.
Yeah.
I think Shane's doing a really good job. That's a very difficult job. I mean, any job in SEC is difficult, but most all of the big 6, and then you bring in Texas, Oklahoma, and all of those guys have conference championship and national championship banners and trophies sitting around, and you walk a kid in on an official visit, and South Carolina doesn't have a trophy they can even show them other than 1971, or I think it's 71, could have been 69.
69, ACC, they went 7-4. Yeah.
ACC championship.
Yeah.
And then we won the East one year when Steve was there. But even those 11-win seasons, never even got to go play in the SEC championship game. So they don't have any tradition. They don't have any history. But they have great facilities. They have an unbelievable location. A lot of SEC schools don't have an airport right there in town. And some of them that do, South Carolina and Vanderbilt and Kentucky, and they're not really the elite teams. But it's kind of strange. But Florida and Alabama and LSU, some of those schools were some of the hardest stadiums to get to when you flew in, because of where the airport's, not LSU, I'm sorry, Ole Miss. And it was just really, of course, Mississippi State, where I was at one time. So there's some advantages at South Carolina, but you're kind of fighting uphill because you never had what most of those schools in the SEC have had, and that's championship seasons.
Well, you know that you've flown into the Golden Triangle Airport.
It was better when I was flying out.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and when Ole Miss comes, when teams come to play Ole Miss, they'll typically fly to Memphis and stay at Whispering Oaks. And I tell you what, Auburn was playing Ole Miss in 2010, and Cam was at Auburn, and I had a kid on the team that was a manager, and my kids, of course, wanted to go see him, and we were out there, and they were having team meetings. Every minute is structured, but it's a quick trip down to Oxford and back. When you think about Florida, and Brendan's working on a story, and if you want,
I am. I'm working on it right now as we're talking. I'm getting information. Sorry. I run GatorbaitMedia.com, Gatorate Magazine.
I want to hear this.
So I can't reveal it. I want to get into it because it's a story I hate. And I don't like calling out coaches. I don't like calling out this situation. I don't like calling out NIL and all that early on. And I just hate it, but it's just a story that won't go away. And when you know it, and it's hard to get rid of it. So that's all I'm going to say. If I have more information, of course, I will share it.
All right, because I look at Florida.
Got to be ethical.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I'm looking at DJ Lagway and the talent around him. And then the way the Gators closed in recruiting, they got several high 4s and some 5s. And we all know this. They've got a lot of analysts on that staff. It started changing toward the end before you retired, Coach. But can you have too many cooks in the kitchen? Too many people over, analysis paralysis?
Well, if not well organized, you certainly can.
Okay.
And Coach Spurrier always said, and I feel like this too, I learned to be suspicious, and when I was coaching with Bill Oliver.
Yeah.
He always thought there were spies somewhere at practice.
Yeah.
That's because he was always spying.
Yeah.
But I think you can have too many, and the more people you have in that building, the more information goes out of the building. And so there's a lot of negatives to it. But if it's well organized and every one of them are good enough to do their job properly, I don't think that you can have too many unless you just get chaos in there.
Yeah. And so speaking of that with Florida, they've got you flip the schedule this year. They go to Miami. They go to Texas A&M. Of course, Georgia's in Jacksonville. The way they finished last season, and this is for Dr. David Arnoff over in the Panhandle, Panama City in Fort Walton. I'll give him a plug. He actually makes house calls, Coach. He's a doctor, an internal medicine specialist, and just one of the greatest people that you'll ever talk to. But the Gators, it's the line of scrimmage. It's never going to change. You look at Georgia, and they're going to be in transition, and they're probably glad Carson Beck is gone. But do the Gators have a legit chance, in your opinion, to wrestle, control? I know we don't have divisions anymore, but let's just pretend we do.
Yeah, I think they absolutely do if they stay healthy.
Yeah.
And that was a big problem last year. Not only was Lagway hurt sometime when he first took over the job, they had some other injuries. Injuries got Oklahoma. I'm not sure how good they were before they started getting injuries, but it was a key factor in their season not being successful. A lot of folks don't have the quality of depth they used to with this portal. And so you can't stack a bunch of kids in your too deep that, will stay there 3 years. They take off and go start for somebody. So that's always a factor. But if I'm coming into a season, one of the first things I'm wondering, do I have an experienced, proven quarterback coming back? And they do. And I'd say there's probably 5 teams in the SEC that can say that. And they're definitely one of them. So he's recruited well, and I think they were very smart to stick through the bad times and get over that hump. And I don't want to jinx anybody, but I think they're going to definitely be one of the schools, one of the teams to contend with in that conference this year for the championship.
Yeah. And I've got the Gators. I'm picking them to win 10 this year. If you win 10, you're going to be in the playoffs and possibly in Atlanta. All right, looking at Georgia, I like what Kirby Smart's saying. I want a roster full of guys that want to be here to play ball. And Dabo Swinney, I mean, you get to go to practice. Not many people get to say they get to do that. You got a son on that team. He has built a culture, but isn't he changing a little bit? Let's talk some Clemson and the comparisons between Dabo and Kirby Smart.
Yeah, if you listen to those two guys talk about this NIL and portal and those type of things, they say it different ways, but they really have the same philosophy.
Okay.
They like building from within. Now, Kirby was a little quicker to go out and pluck a few immediate needs 2 or 3 years ago and last couple of years. Dabo was a little bit less aggressive. I think it comes down that he feels like once you crack that door, you're going to have some culture cracks, in the ceiling or in the foundation. Yeah. And so he was a little slow to do that, but he's picked up 4 or 5 in the last year. And I think that they understand that you can't compete against other people if you're developing a rising sophomore and they went and got the former starter from Ole Miss to be whatever that position is. So I think, and he's got a few coaches that have come into his staff in the last 3 years, and they're probably saying the same things. We love this culture. We love this environment. But Coach, we can't keep up with these guys if they reload and we're rebuilding. It's just not going to work in this environment. So they both have very similar philosophies, and Kirby has not, to my knowledge, gone out and tried to find one of those $3 million, $4 million quarterbacks.
Yeah,
he's trying to go with the guy they've got inside and the kid he recruited, another kid they recruited. So a lot of teams would have been out getting another Cam Ward as soon as that kid went to Miami or got hurt, but he has not done that to my knowledge.
Yeah, I haven't seen it yet. Gunnar Stockton from Rayburn County. That's where they filmed Deliverance, I think. That was tough. Look, we know one thing. He's a tough kid, drives an old truck with roll-up windows. He's retro, and you talk about being marketable, if he starts off hot, he's going to get more NIL deals. That's people like retro. Tennessee, Nico Iamaleava, allegedly has a 4-year, $8 million deal. It's crazy we're talking about this with college, but I think last year he averaged 169 yards passing in SEC games and like 207 in the non-conference games. Josh Heupel also had Dylan Sampson back there, the leading touchdown, scorer in the SEC. But I was shocked. I thought they would beat Ohio State in Columbus in the playoffs. They got drilled 42-10 Saturday, December 21st. Does Tennessee make it back to the playoffs? They've got a returning quarterback, and a year experience in that system should help, shouldn't it?
Yes, I think he's still a really talented quarterback. Yeah, but I think what he did last year was, I think what everybody's expectations were, he underperformed. So there's probably some concerns there. And that's a style of offense that position has got to be able to make these plays, these 6 or 8 explosive plays in the passing game. It opens up everything else in their run attack. Yeah. And Sampson, with a great back like that, they were able to still run the football effectively. But boy, when they're hitting it outside on these 9 routes and on the quicks, and you get spread out with them, and you can't stop the run. You don't have enough people in there to stop the run. They've recruited well. From the day he got in there, they needed the defensive build-up, and that's one of the biggest keys to their success. They weren't quality defense in front when he got there. Yeah. And they've got some dudes in there now. Rodney Garner, who I worked with at Auburn, is one of the best recruiters in the country, and he's done a good job getting that thing straightened out. But I think they'll be in the hunt. I don't know. I think they've got some things that they've got to get better at. They're just not consistent since he's been up there, and that quarterback's probably going to be the key.
Yeah, a year experience. Again, at the end of the 23 season, he played in the bowl game, but that was pretty much the extent of what he did. And everybody acted like he was in his second year. That was his first year as a starter. So I think he's super talented. And I think the criticism a lot of Tennessee fans say is he holds the ball too long. But that means
they've had 2 guys in front of him that were just absolutely perfect in that system. And they were devastating in that system. So I think they kind of fell off a little bit in that aspect, but he's still, I think, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah. I mean, it's 6'6", 215, super talented. I agree. I want to ask you now about Vanderbilt. Clark Lee, I rode on the elevator with him at Media Days in Dallas last year, and he was with his wife, and I don't think he was really looking forward to going and having to talk to the media. But in that room, he said something that I thought was a harbinger of things to come. He said, every kid on our roster now has bought into what we're selling. He goes, every single one of them. They're part of, like you say, building within. They got that win over Alabama. They finished 6-6. What kind of a ceiling? I mean, if Bell Meade wakes up and says, hey, we want to pump some more money into Vanderbilt football, watch out. Are we at that point now to where if you get the right owner, the right boosters, even Vanderbilt could say Atlanta or bust? I hadn't been drinking.
I'm not going to go that far. I'm not going to go that far, but it used to be that you had to have $100 million and put a new deck on the stadium and fill it up to say we belong. Now you just got to have about $30 million and give it to the players and get the ones you want. Yeah, and we belong. But I don't think they're ever going to have the quality depth and not have a little bit of a disadvantage in the talent level. Yeah. But that being said, what he did last year, and of course it all hit kind of like a magic stick with the quarterback coming in, and his coach came with him, and the system came with him, and everything was really, really clicking on that side of the ball, much more so than they've ever been in recent history. So, they can be competitive. And they can keep somebody else from going to Atlanta that had a shot to go to Atlanta. Yeah. But I don't think they can. I don't think that's in their portfolio in the near future.
Yeah, and you wonder, are they willing to do whatever it takes? I mean, and I think about Georgia Tech coaches would say, all right, you're going to have to pass calculus. Now, and anyone that's ever taken or passed calculus will tell you emphatically, you're never going to use it in anything. It's but you got to have it to get the degree and your freshman year. So looking around, I want to go to Mississippi State. This is year 2. And you lose Mike Leach, then you bring in Zach Arnett. And now, Jeff Levy he's got the lineage. He's Art Browne's son-in-law. He coached with Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. And I like Starkville. You lived there. You worked there. I've been there the 38 games, I think, over the year. I've been there a lot. Their NIL is not what Ole Miss is right now, but they do really well recruiting in state. They do a phenomenal job with that. Why is it so hard in Mississippi? Is it because there's 17 junior colleges, but the academic, what they do in Mississippi is different grade-wise, isn't it, than in Alabama? Like a 65 is a D in Alabama, but anything below a 70 in Mississippi is a failing grade, because I can't explain it, but there's a ton of talent in Mississippi, and it hurts them.
I'm not sure specifically to Mississippi and Alabama, but there were different grading systems, not only in different states, but sometimes in different school districts within a state. And you would go into a high school that was really a very well-run high school, and you knew these kids were having to work their butt off to get a B, and a lot of them were going to get a C. And they were harder sometimes to get qualified. You go down to a low country school, I'm talking about South Carolina now, where they had to basically keep passing kids, or they'd have them all in the 9th grade for 10 years. So, you go in and recruit a kid that couldn't make the score, and he had a 3.9 on his grade point.
Yeah.
And it was, and then we had a lot of trouble. North Carolina and South Carolina, that was the first time we ran into the different grading systems that were real different. And we kept complaining through our administration and trying through the NCAA until the university, I'm talking about at Clemson, until the university started having a problem, with our in-state kids not being taken, and some kid from Charlotte being brought in on a full scholarship academic. And taxpaying citizens started raising hell.
Yeah.
And when it finally got to their doorstep over at the main administration building, something was addressed on it. But you're exactly right. That element does exist, but I can't speak to exactly how it works in that. Population is not big, and academics in some cases are not good, and that makes it a little harder recruiting pool. But in Mississippi State, the biggest problem is 50 miles away, you got one of the best programs ever in America, and then 60 miles up, a little bit northwest of you, you got the economic dominant power in the state.
Yeah.
And believe me, politically, they control the state of Mississippi. And their board is like the state of North Carolina. They have one board that oversees all college institutions.
That's right.
And there's a lot of political maneuvers going on with that. And it doesn't affect only athletics, but it does affect athletics.
Well, the only thing more powerful than that board in Mississippi, living in Memphis and knowing the Delta well, is the levee board. That's where you control flooding and the water, and inside the levee, outside the levee. And
South Carolina, it's the Port Authority.
There you go. I mean,
nobody wants to be on that damn board, but it's more powerful than anything else in the state.
Or Alabama Power. That's a powerful lobby. All right. Kerry Jones is commenting on here, and Kerry is from Lebanon, Tennessee. He grew up in Mobile. He's a big Auburn fan. Wanted to know if you think that and this is year 3 for Hugh Freeze, he had to take over a roster that basically Auburn gave themselves, when they hired Brian Harsin, a self-imposed death penalty. And the recruiting that Freeze is doing has been really strong. Year 3, across the board, the talent's been upgraded. What do you think Auburn will do this year? Because they've lost in the last 2 years so many close games. It seems like they struggled. They're bringing in Jackson Arnold. So what are you seeing from the Tigers?
Well, I've been really surprised, disappointingly, that they weren't better last year.
Yeah.
But he ran into the issues at quarterback. Yeah. When Hugh took the offense back over and started kind of calling it himself, I thought that was going to be a huge step forward. And because of the issues with the quarterback, it didn't really hit. but I do think they've recruited extremely well.
Yeah.
I'm not sure they haven't, in some cases, out-recruited Alabama. But it's going to get over the hump. The one thing they don't need to do, it may be a Florida situation where somebody, John's going to have to be strong at one point and just say, hey, we ain't making a change. We're working this thing through, period. Yeah. But if they make another coaching change on a bad season anytime soon, it's just going to be almost insurmountable. So I think they're going to be much better. And I said it about Florida too, that you got to avoid injuries. Everybody's got to avoid injuries, and we can't control all that. But I think they're going to be a lot better. And I think 2 reasons: quarterback position and the overall recruiting.
Yeah. And I'm with you. I think with also the House settlement next month, we're going to get a final word from the judge on whether that works. But firing coaches is a lot less likely to happen. We saw this past year, no coaches lost their job in the SEC. You've got to invest. And if you're just switching, if you're an investor and you're constantly selling stocks or buying whatever based on emotions, you're just spinning your wheels. I think we're going to see a lot more coaches given a lot more leeway, a lot more time to build. Frank Beamer comes to mind.
I will say this, Rob. I've been around Clemson a lot, with my son over there. And, things happen and coaches have a reaction, like the NIL and the portal and all the things that have been changing in college football dynamically here in the last recent years.
Yeah.
And something will make one of them giddy and one will make somebody mad or whatever. But when that ruling came down from, the House, this thing about revenue sharing or the 20 million cap, or it was something in there that they were like, whoa. And it wasn't just the coaches. It was a lot of the administrators too. And I think you're going to see a little less of all these exorbitant contracts and firing them after 2 years and paying 3 different coaches at the same time that don't work at your school. I think you're going to see a lot less of that because now this damn revenue thing is going to hit all sports, not just football.
Exactly.
And so the football people are worried about, and I'm sure administrators too. You might make all these millions and millions and millions, but when everybody starts picking off their little piece of the pie and taking a little bit of that money, it's going to go a lot faster than people can realize.
It really is. And hey, let me say something about Winter Timber Outdoors. Look, man, it is spring. Turkey season is upon us. All your gear that you need, hunting, fishing, the outdoor life. They are located in Athens, Alabama, building a store in Auburn, Alabama. They're going to grow in the footprint. That's their plan. That is the SEC. Check them out. Winter Timber Outdoors, open every day of the week. Duck hunting, dove hunting, deer, quail, pheasant, turkey. Get it all and all your gear, everything you need. Ammunition. You see those Migra ammo boxes there? The Migra ammunition for duck hunting, 1 shot, 1 kill. The turkey loads, the copper plated, they've got them. It's a Migra. They're out of Charleston, South Carolina. They've got all that at Winter Timber Outdoors. Again, open every day of the week. Coach, Yancy Porter will be on in just a moment from Rebel Yell Hotline. And again, Rodney Orr. And looking around, I heard what you just said. People, they get so emotional. It's almost like they think they're powerful by saying a coach has been there for a year or 2. He's got to go get rid of him. Well, you keep changing. It's like a money manager that's constantly churning in the account. The consequences are lots of taxes. Then you've got tax managed growth. You can't let emotions take over. I mean, people are 3 times more successful when they use an advisor versus trading their own account, because every time they go to the bathroom, they sell everything because they're afraid they're going to come out and be broke. That's what I think we're coming out of that. I think
that's a great analogy. And you're in the business, and I certainly haven't had millions invested, but anytime I have contacted my guy and say, hey, why are we not selling? Why are we not buying? And it's always, just be patient or whatever. Yeah. And that's a good analogy, Rob. and I think some of these programs are going to have to understand that you're going to hear a lot of static out there from the fans and/or the boosters and/or even the board. You've got to have somebody in that athletics director chair and even the president to say, look, we're not pulling the string that fast anymore. Yeah. We're tired of it. Yeah. And it's not that you're all that pleased with what's going on, but nobody has the ability to see in the future and know exactly what's going to happen. But when you check on it, the only changes that everybody likes to refer back to and say, well, look what happened when they hired so-and-so and they hired so-and-so. They don't want to talk about the ones that didn't work out. And you can't be changing coaches every 2 and 4 and 3 and 4 and 2 seasons. You can't keep doing that. It's probably less effective now with the portal, but it's just disruptive to a recruiting system, and it's disruptive to a team. I mean, kids are human. You know, they all that change going on around them. That's no different than change going on in the depth chart.
Yeah, and look at the Pittsburgh Steelers organization. 4 coaches. I can name obviously Chuck Noll, Bill Cowher, Mike Tomlin. I'm not sure who was there before Chuck Noll, but the Rooney family has done a damn good job, and you can't go anywhere. I think when Neil Armstrong landed on the moon, one of the things he said was, one small step for man, one giant leap for Steelers Nation. I mean, there's so many. There are Steelers fans everywhere. But in today's world, I think if you stick to somebody, and if anything, you make that power coordinator hire, like go get someone like Chip Kelly to come in from Oregon, well, UCLA, head coach to Ohio State. And now he's already gone, I think, back to the NFL or whatever.
I didn't even know that.
I think he's already gone after 1 year. But making a wholesale, flipping the portfolio, churning the account, that's what you're doing. And then you got to pay them off, buy out the new people coming in. I think the free markets, and this is what's happening, investors are saying, come on, you got to stop that. You can't keep coming to us when you're losing your ass without a solution. You got to give things. Any wealthy person will tell you. If you go back to FedEx, when that company started, like in 73 in Memphis, I know this is a true story. I think this person had badge number 3 or 4 in the company. The first night, FedEx on the tarmac, on the runway at Memphis International Airport, had about 20 packages come through. This is a true story. And I know this person said, everybody write their name and their phone number down on this legal pad. We'll call you back if we need you. I mean, and there's some other stories. And what if they'd have just given up? Not going to make it. You got to think, every wealthy client that I have, it's usually, a lot of times you got a grandfather that had a 7th or 8th grade education that dropped out of school out of necessity. Is the mother of all invention. I think the free market's correcting on the coaching. As mad as we get, as a coach, these kids are coming and going all the time. Maybe if the adults settle down, they'll follow.
Yeah. I used to love, Coach Holtz had an analogy that I always thought was a great one. You got a stock car that you own, you're the owner, and it crashes in turn 3, destroys half the body on the car, the engine's almost blown. Yeah. They pull in for a pit stop and they change drivers and put it back out on the track.
Yeah.
And that's the way a lot of these college programs are trying to say, we're in the big time.
Yeah.
We're not going to put up with this. And they're not addressing all the underlying factors.
Yeah.
If I was evaluating a coach, we're at this crossroad here and we're struggling. I'm going to look at 3 things. Are they still recruiting successfully? Is the locker room does the coach still have the locker room? And then the third thing would be, is a bunch of shit going on off the field that is deteriorating to our overall culture.
Yeah.
And if those 3 things are out of order, I'm going to be a little less patient. But if those 3 things are in order and you're making a change, I think you're making a mistake.
Yeah. I'll say this too. We're going to bring in Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, folks. It's only $48 a year. Tuesday nights at 6:30. He and our friend Gary Harris, WVUA, Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa, do a great show called Tighter Insider. Rodney, as a young boy, and Coach, you remember this as a youngster, in the late 60s when they changed the substitution rules, that had a negative effect, especially on Alabama. And in 68, 69, and 70, there were several 4 and 5 loss years. And there were people that absolutely were, living brain donors, but they wanted Coach Bryant, get rid of him. The games passed him by. And Rodney, that's probably when you were a young kid, but you remember those days. They stuck with him in the 70s. They gave us a couple of things. Liberace, Barry Manilow, but Alabama in the 70s was the winningest program in college football. It kind of worked out, didn't it?
It did. First of all, let me say, hey, Coach, how are you doing today?
Doing good. Rodney, you weren't even born then.
Yeah, I was, Coach, actually.
He was a little guy, though.
Time flies. I was 8 years old. I'm not sure if I knew what I'm not sure if I knew what I was looking at in 1968 or even today for that matter. But I think Coach laid out 3 things there. And Coach Bryant said this, back in those days, that he kind of let things slip a little bit in those later 60s, that he should have handled some things differently. That he allowed players to get away with some things that they had not kind of gotten away with, and things slipped for a few years. And then, of course, they found the wishbone, and, things took off again, obviously. But what Coach outlined there, I think, gives me a little confidence with Kalen DeBoer right now, based on some things that we hear, as close as we can be to the program. Is I think now he's kind of, after this first year, the transition year, which is always really difficult that first year, I think, he's kind of moving in the direction that he wants to go in terms of the culture, the personnel that he has, kind of the way he manages the program. There's a lot of pressure, obviously, a lot of high expectations here. But I think, it's going to be interesting to see how, he continues to move. But right now, all the vibes in spring practice and around the program with the players and all of those things have been really positive. So I know that it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out next season.
And I think what would be interesting is if people in their own personal lives would say, wow, if I was judged by what I was as an attorney my second year out of law school, I don't think I'd have kept a job. And look, it is frustrating, but I've just seen it happen. We all have. Ride the storm out. If you got a good one, the cream's going to rise to the top. Rodney, real quick, we're having some fun. We went basketball heavy yesterday, talking a lot of football today. Hopefully, Yancy Porter will be able to join us, unless he was abducted by aliens. But it is basketball. It's a big deal. Bama in the Sweet 16. And if Nate Oates does this again this year, I think he's going to tie Winifred E. Wimp Sanderson, 85, 86, 87, 3 straight Sweet 16s. But also, if they win out, I think he's going to have the record for most NCAA tournament wins ever. How excited are the Alabama people and the fans about this basketball program?
Well, I think overall they're really excited. Obviously what he's done has been pretty fantastic. Going to the first Final Four in school history,
Yep.
The way he recruits, and he plays a really exciting brand, obviously. I think the thing with Alabama fans is, as both of you know, in some ways they kind of compare basketball to football. Like before the season, I watch it on TighterInsider.com. It's like they expected them to go undefeated.
Yeah.
So the expectations for basketball are kind of, what's happening in football kind of bleeds over there in terms of the way the fans, their expectations. So with that said, they got to a Final Four last year. They're looking. That's kind of the expectation this year. It certainly was the expectation this year going in. And I think the expectation is that, they get there and eventually win a national championship. It's just kind of the way it is. And that's the way the fans are kind of viewing it right now.
Well, it certainly created a ton of excitement, and you throw in spring practice coming in. I think people need to appreciate what's happening in basketball, and and you talked about it in football. The first year, Kalen DeBoer comes in, wins 9 games. Golly, the guy that John Shire that replaced Coach K at Duke. In 3 years, he's got him as a number 1 seed. But that's a hard job to follow. I mean, Nick Saban, there's never been anybody that's won like that in terms of national championships. Coach, when you look at Kalen DeBoer coming from Washington, I mean, he's been around. He's got an incredible record of winning. What do you think when the bowl game ended and they got together as a staff? You think they got together and said, wow, this SEC is better than we thought, it's as good as we thought, or what were they thinking?
That's a hard question. I don't know what they would have been saying. I don't think any of them came in, with blinders on. I think they knew what they were getting into. Sometimes you think you know what you're getting into and you fully expect it, and it's still different than what you thought.
Yeah.
That may be a little bit of that. I don't know. He's going to be fine, if he can kind of get everything turned over to his way. When you come in behind somebody who has been totally dominant, you can change anything. You can change the curtains in the office. You can change the top of the stationery. You can change how you stretch before practice. Whatever the hell you change is wrong. And you have to somehow take all that heat and still stay focused. And I'm not trying to say that he's as good a coach as Nick Saban or he's not as good a coach as Nick Saban. That really isn't the question. But as long as they want to make it the question, they're going to still be arguing and fighting and calling in the shows and all this other stuff. The bottom line is you can't be somebody else. You have to do it your way.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't mean your way is better. But if you try to be somebody else, you're set up for failure sooner or later. Do it your way. Do it your way. And some of the ways you do it, they're going to be the same. And some of them are going to be different. And the first thing you got to tell the damn players is just what I got through saying. And if you don't want to do it that way, then leave now so you don't become a drag on the rest of the football team. And the fans can kind of do the same thing sooner or later. But, I just think it's not easy and it's not a magic trick. But if you try to be somebody else or every time you make a decision, let's say, well, how did they do it 2 years ago? Because if we do it that way, everybody will be happy. You can't do that. So, it's not going to happen overnight. But I think he's obviously a good football coach. He's got the track record. Is he going to be successful there? I don't know. I mean, I don't think anybody knows. But I think they've made a good decision. I think they picked a good coach, and they need to let him coach it the way he wants to coach it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask Coach a question here. And Coach, I don't know if you can answer this it may be too difficult to answer in a short way, but Nick Saban, obviously the last several years went to had a nickel, always had 5 DBs on the field. I'm just curious, what is really the difference between what Saban ran and a 4-2-5? I mean, it's basically the same kind of alignment, isn't it?
There's a lot of carryover. I mean, but once you name the personnel, 4 D linemen, 2 linebackers, 5 DBs. Okay, that's good. But one person puts 3 safeties out there in those 5 DBs, and one puts an extra corner or whatever. The only thing I know about the Alabama defense, he was a traditional 3-4, a 3-4 base, and that these 3 wide and 4 wide formations eventually will run you out of a 7-man front. You cannot cover that kind of space with 4 linebackers and 3 linemen, or 4 linemen and 3 linebackers. They're going to get you out in space and pick on your defender. So everybody's got to bring that 5th DB. Well, there's a lot of different ways to do that. Some people stay in that odd look up front, take one of the outside linebackers out and put another DB in, and he becomes the space player out there where they're getting that 3rd and 4th wide out. If you start from a 4-2-5 base, to me, when you try to play the 5 DB system against all these spread formations, your kids are more familiar with it, they're more comfortable in it, and so forth. When Coach first made his decision, he got to get the fifth DB out there. When you come out of a base defense that you put 2 weeks in preseason, and now you start playing 5 DBs, you're playing nickel schemes. You're not playing first down, second down defense. So I think over time, even the odd 3-4 guys, they kind of said, look, guys, we can't spend 6 days on a 3-4 in preseason. We're not running it, but about 35 snaps the whole season. So that kind of stuff, you just have to transition. And usually the offensive coaches are the innovators and the defensive coaches are constantly adjusting. So I probably ran around in circles there, but there's a lot of difference in some people's 5-man schemes and other people 5 DB schemes and other people's 5 DB schemes. I think, what's his name?
Womack,
Dave's son. I can't get his first name out, but Dave's son.
Cade
was a 4-down, 2 inside back, or 5 DB guy, I think, from the base. And it's going to take a little bit of adjustment for that to fit in. But I think overall, it's going to be the best thing as far as adapting to all these offenses you see.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a lot of people that, of course, that you talked about change. And that 4-2-5, a lot of people have brought it up about, he's changing from Saban's defense, and this isn't a system that's going to work in the SEC. So that's interesting.
Well, you better do 3 things. You better know how to coach it, you better know how to adjust it, and you better recruit to it. If you hadn't got players, nothing's going to work. And if you get in halftime and something's happening and you can't fix it, your kids are going to give up on you. So that's the only thing about it. I've never been a scheme guy. I think that players win games. If you put them in the wrong place, they're not going to be able to win games for you. But they're just going to have to. That's just right, and that's a great point because it's an example of what I just said a while ago. If you're going to criticize everything that's changed, you're not going to make it across the river because you can't be the same person. It's not going to work.
All right.
Well, you look around at these packages now. You got the nickel back, the dime. Now they've got the quarter. I think it's 8. And I like what you said. If you're going to lose them at halftime, if they don't believe in what you're doing,
right?
What did we see, guys, a couple of years ago when Joe Burrow was there? Maybe it was Kevin Steele, but somebody put like a 3-2-6 defense out there. And I mean, people were trying everything. Joe Burrow throws for 5,700 yards in one season at 78.6% completion. I mean, it's like, what else are you supposed to do? You put a net out there?
Was that when I was with brother there at Alabama? We called our defensive personnel with numbers. Most people identify the offensive personnel with numbers. In other words, a 3 wide, 1 tight end is 11 personnel, and that means 1 back and 1 tight end. Okay, so the numbers pertain to the fullback or the back and the tight end. So if you've got 10 personnel, you're in 4 wides. If you've got 21 personnel, you're in 2 back and a tight end. 12 personnel, you're in 2 tight ends and a back. Well, we were just the opposite. We nicknamed offensive personnel. They were like Jayhawk or whatever. And we numbered our defensive personnel. We go into some games with brothers sometime, and we were going to play 3-4. We were going to play 4-2. We were going to play 4-1. We were going to play 3-2. I mean, we had about 6 packages against some teams, and you could sub them in and out, and it was all cool. And then about 4 or 5 years later, everybody went to the no huddle, and all that shit went out the window. So if you put the 3-4 out there, and you look up and on first and second down, they're in 4 wides, and they're dinking you to death. And when you spread out, they're running 1 backs up through the middle of the line of scrimmage, and you can't get your kids off the field. Well, okay, we'll just go to nickel. You put nickel out there, and they come in with their tight ends, and with a no huddle, you can't get big guys out on the field. So that's what ran me out of the 3-4. That was my favorite defense of all, was the 3-4. But these 3 wide, 4 wide, no huddle, that's when it all got to points. So guys, we got to pick our poison now. What are we going to be? And that's when I went back to my roots. I played under Bobby Ross and Frank Beamer and some of those guys and Ralph Friesian. And Coach Ross brought that old wide tackle 6 from Maryland. And that's what I learned in college was the 8-man front, 4 down, 2 inside and 2 outside strong safeties, 2 inside backers. And then Coach Beamer, he started changing that thing when he became a head coach at Murray State and Virginia Tech.
Yeah.
He took one of those outside linebackers out and he put an extra safety. So they were really playing 4 down, 2 inside linebackers, and 3 safeties. And then one of the coaches at the Eagles became a 3 safety defense when they had Brian Dawkins and those guys. And that's what I just finally said, this is what we got to do. We can play that defense on any down.
Yeah.
And somehow match up. And we tweaked it as we went Mississippi State. And then when I went to South Carolina, et cetera. And it was really kind of an extension of what I learned from Coach Beamer.
Yeah. Well, let's bring in Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline. Catch it Monday nights on Sports 56 WHBQ in Memphis and on the radio all over on Super Talk Mississippi. It's a great show. Yancy knows the Rebel program. We've got Coach Bill. I almost called you Bill Oliver, Coach Ellis Johnson. I mean, you remind me so damn much of him. It's crazy. And y'all work together. But we've got Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider, Coach Ellis Johnson, one of the smartest coaches ever, and Yancy Porter. Yancy, we've been talking some football, but let's squeeze in some basketball. I thought I was watching Saturday morning wrestling with Dave Brown and Lance Banana Nose Russell with the curb stomping. I mean, Ole Miss up by 26 over Iowa State in the second half. And, Iowa State made a run, kind of a cyclone at the end. Ole Miss won by 14, I think. They're in the Sweet 16. They're going to Atlanta. And Chris Beard got to address, I didn't see any fraud in this program. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, there were 2 things that has kind of catapulted the team. One is that they're playing extremely well defensively, and they're hitting that outside shots where they were not, earlier this season, and that's really created spacing offensively for them to operate. So they're playing the best ball without a doubt right now.
Padula, who's a transfer from Virginia Tech, one of 9 children. Again, he had to fight just to get enough at dinner. He's a competitor. That guy's a warrior. He is fearless. And then your other guy, the other guard from the Bronx, man, Beard's players play with his kind of intensity. I'm going to Atlanta. We're leaving after the show. We're going to go to Birmingham, spend the night, then get on over to Atlanta. That's going to be an unbelievable atmosphere. Auburn, Ole Miss, Michigan, and Michigan State at State Farm Arena right there in downtown Atlanta. Yancy, I got to ask you, man, Chris Beard, you and I both been talking about it. I think he loves it at Ole Miss, and I think they love him.
Yeah, the talk with the Indiana was just that. It was just talk. It was just fun message board fodder, as Coach Ellis would probably tell you. He's seen that for many, many years.
Sometimes coach is responsible for it.
Yes, it's 80% BS and a little bit of truth mixed in, and you gotta wade through it and see what's true and not. But Coach Beard ain't going anywhere right now. It's just try to hone down. Rob, I told you last week, I said I really feel like that it's going to end up being Ole Miss and Auburn to play for the Final Four there in Atlanta. God. And for the 4th matchup, we'll have to look up and see if a team has played each other 4 times in a season. That would be some interesting trivia.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever happened. I mean, and it is going to be just a zoo. Crazy in Atlanta because that's Auburn's biggest alumni base in America, outside the state of Alabama. But they've got so damn many people there. Ole Miss, so does Ole Miss, and unfortunately, so does Michigan and Michigan State. Atlanta is full of transients, so it'll be a crazy atmosphere. Guys, we're basketball. We're going to get back on basketball heavy again tomorrow, but I want to go back to talk a little bit more football and. Yeah. Yancy and Rodney and Coach, these guys get together, man. It's like getting the band back together, man. It's like the band. And I'll let you be Levon Helm, the lead singer, who was from Turkey Scratch, Arkansas, next to Marvel, right outside of Helena down in the Delta. But Yancy, what about Ole Miss right now? Austin Simmons, spring practice. I know last year at the spring game, Lane Kiffin went a little bit off the chain. He had people guessing people's weight, and carnival barkers out there and people doing sack races and stuff. But you know what? I don't care what you say. Everybody in the country was talking about it. And now there's a paradigm shift from we don't need these stupid spring games. What's he going to do this year?
Nothing. There's not going to be a spring game. This is what the culture's created with the portal. Nobody wants to showcase their players for other teams to look at. Why do you want to showcase maybe a third string redshirt freshman that has a great spring game and somebody over there at Clemson or Alabama says, man, that kid looks really good. And next thing you know, the portal's open and it opens up coming up here in April and he's gone. So this is what's been created. But as far as Ole Miss, I think they're really, really pleased with their front seven on defense, Rob. This sounds repetitive, but Lane has really put an emphasis on that front seven on defense as he's been there, and they're deep and talented there again. If there's one area that they feel like they need to add depth and add some more talent, it's that defensive backfield, though.
Yeah, Rodney, I wanted to get your thoughts. Same thing about the Alabama defense. It's going to be different. Obviously, it's year two, and then Coach, your thoughts on putting in all these new systems. But I'll start with you, Rodney Orr, Tighter Insider.
Well, last year I thought Mo Lindquist, the secondary coach, Colin Hitzler was here as well. He's gone now. Jason Jones is here, who I think Coach might have recruited Jason Jones out of high school, or maybe he came a little bit after Coach left. Anyway, it was Jason Jones, now the safeties coach, and I thought Lindquist did a great job. Think about this. He had to replace two guys that were really first-round talents, McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. And then there was a third guy that Yancy's really familiar with, who I thought was a potential first-round talent, Trey Amos, that was here at Alabama. Alabama had got him from Louisiana. He played 1 year and did a fantastic job in the SEC championship game against Georgia, and then he's gone. So I thought Lindquist did a really good job, for the most part in the secondary last year. I think that, when you look at this Alabama defense, they have Tim Keenan back up front, LT Overton, James Smith. Those guys are really talented. They've got to develop some of those younger guys behind them. Jeremiah Beeman, Edric Hill on the inside. Jordan Renaud is a guy on the outside, a redshirt sophomore who's got a ton of talent. And I'm waiting for him to kind of, blossom. And then also Keon Keeley, who was a 5-star rated player, of course, coming out of high school as a linebacker. Now they've moved him down to a defensive end, a bandit defensive end. So, I think it's just going to be, to me, defensively, a lot of the question is, how improved are they going to be against the run on a consistent basis? You look at the games Alabama lost last year, the 4 games. They gave up 166 yards rushing to Vanderbilt, and I think Alabama had like 80-something. Against Tennessee, they gave up 247 or something like that, and they had under 100 yards again. Oklahoma had 257, and Alabama had under 100 again. And then in the Michigan game, Alabama could not stop Michigan late in the game running the ball, even without a passing threat. So I think, defensively, they've got to get better consistently against the run. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, Coach, it all starts up front.
Yep, and that point Rodney made when we were talking about the systems a while ago, when you get away from a 7-man front, you're going to have some problems with the run, and you got to have an answer for it. So just because you're in a certain scheme doesn't mean that you can't stop the run. It just means that you put that extra DB out there. Maybe you got to play more people in the box. Maybe you got to, bring some pressure or whatever. But I think, I don't know the depth charts like these two guys do, But I do think spring practice is important. But like Yancy said a while ago, if you're big in the portal and you get them in there on the first portal run, you'd love to have a bunch of spring practices to get your system in. Yeah. But if you're pulling on the second portal run, that's post-spring practice, and you're out there practicing spring practice, and a third of your team's not even been brought in yet. So I think that's what a lot of coaches are getting frustrated with on this spring practice deal. Is some of them need it and some of them don't need it. And, they've watered it down pretty bad already. But I do think they let them do more off the field outside of spring practice and outside of fall practice. I think they get a little more hands-on with the players than we used to be able to get. So it's just a matter of balancing it, I guess. And I don't, the calendar now, the recruiting calendar and the portal calendar and all that is affecting spring practice and all kind of things now that just were not there when I was coaching.
Yeah. Yancy, along those lines, Ole Miss had 42 guys finish their eligibility or move on, I think, in January after the bowl game. There are going to be a lot of new faces. There always are at Ole Miss. I think the current portal class was 2 or 3 in the country. Any names that you're hearing about in the off-season voluntary workouts and the mat drills?
Yeah, they really like the Lacey running back that came from Missouri. He was actually a redshirt freshman there at Missouri. They recruited him really hard out of high school. He's out of Texas. He's really impressed them. The offensive tackle that really kind of played a little bit everywhere at Arkansas, from Memphis, from Briarcrest there. He's moved over to center with Bryson Sanders out. He tweaked a hamstring. He's looked really good as well. Those are really the ones that have kind of stood out, I think, offensively. Defensively, a lot of guys are hurt right now, but they're not really leaning on defense. They're not leaning on the portal as much as they are offensively. Defensively, that front seven are guys that have been in their system the old school way. They've been in there a year or two and waited their turn. You're going to have those 4 defensive linemen from Ole Miss go in the first couple rounds this year, and they drafted really or they recruited really well at that position the year before, and they played their 4 games, got their red shirt in, and they're really excited about that group.
I like that term, drafted, and someone brought up a point. We might even have a high school draft here. I can imagine. I can imagine that. All right, we'll wrap it up here in a few minutes, and I want to say something about our sponsors. But Rodney, for people that do want to, find out about what's going on, there's no better source than Tider Insider. Tell them about what you're putting out right now, some of the stories that are out there, so they can follow the Crimson Tide with the Tider Insider authority. There is no other.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I mean, being right now in basketball, obviously that's an emphasis, a lot of discussion on our boards about, this run that Alabama's trying to make. And then spring practice right in the middle of that. I think it's practice 7 today. So we're almost halfway there. Alabama's 8A game, by the way, will be modified as well. Don't really know what that means, but it's going to be modified. But we're recapping the practices the best we can. Media's closed out. We've only had one 15-minute viewing period through, this will be the 7th practice, and we've got one more on April the 8th. So, but yeah, just talking to sources and providing whatever information we can on, some guys that are standing out. And then those types of things are what we're covering there on TiderInsider.com.
Well, it is the best $48 you'll spend anywhere. Coach Ellis Johnson, thank you so much for your time. This is absolutely awesome. Normally you're on Mondays and kind of switching some things around till we get through with basketball. Then we'll get back to our regular Monday schedule. But Yancy Porter, Rebel Yell Hotline, catch it. It's every Monday night at 6 p.m., the source for Ole Miss sports and athletics. And Yancy, leave us with this bit of parting wisdom, and I'll let everybody go. Anything that people that are going to Atlanta for the Ole Miss Rebels. Are they going to have a gathering place where the team headquarters is, and for a pep rally with all the – I'm sure Ole Miss will have a ton of fans in Atlanta.
Yeah, it is. Unfortunately, the pricing is just outrageous. To walk into the stadium, it's almost $1,000 for the worst seat because you got Ole Miss and Auburn there that you've got so many fans located there in Atlanta. So it's just, I don't know if that's going to drive away. I know Ole Miss got 1,000 tickets allotted to them, and obviously they got a ton of more ticket orders than their allotment. But the Marriott is where the Ole Miss hotel is in downtown Atlanta, and I don't know when the pet rally is going to be, but if you want to go over there and mosey around and mingle with Ole Miss people, that's where everybody will be.
All right, man. Everybody take care. Thanks so much. And let me wrap up with a message about our sponsors. And hey, it is never a bad time to get out and look for a new car, truck, or SUV. LandersFordMemphis.com. Take $500 off. They are the #1 Ford dealership in the Mid-South. LandersFordMemphis.com is Poplar and Houston Levy out in Collierville, where Collierville meets Memphis. Great time, 7 a.m., 7 p.m., Monday through Saturday. They are closed on Sunday. They're all over the Mid-South. All kinds of opportunities to save big. The F-150 Lightning, Expeditions, Explorers, Ford Escapes, the Maverick. Hey, the Broncos. You're not going to believe what these Broncos look like now. The off-road packages, they've got all the features that you ever dreamed of. And something about Landers too. They're invested in the Mid-South. Look around at high school stadiums, Houston High School, Collierville, Christian Brothers High School, Tom Nix Stadium, Landers Field. What a big commitment that they make in the communities where they do business. And no matter where you are, you can order online and they will deliver. Landers Ford, proud to have them. And Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee, located right down the street from Landers. Over 7,000 pairs of men's and women's boots. Great looking clothes, the outdoor life, the good life. Will never look better. Get out to Hewlett and Dunn. Most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us, the most blessed people in the greatest country in the history of the world. We can't do everything, but we can all do something. For executive producer Brenden Martin, so long, everybody. Check us out tonight on The Buddy Martin Show at 9 p.m. Eastern on this channel.